Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first ever DC Clean Energy Summit. My name is Willie Phillips. I'm the chairman of the DC Public Service Commission. I want to thank my colleagues, Commissioner Emil Thompson and Commissioner Richard Beverly, for when I came to them in the middle of a pandemic and said, I think we need to have a summit. They said, you're absolutely right. And so because of them, we are here. Also want to thank my staff, our staff, for all of the work they put into this over the past several months. They have put together an agenda that I believe is outstanding. You will hear from government leaders, stakeholders, advocates, as well as thought leaders in our industry who will bring to bear their opinions, their advice, and their counsel for the commission so that we can do what I believe is the most important issue of our time, and that is the clean energy transition. So with that, I have people telling me that I can't say too much because we have a packed agenda. I will turn it over to our first speaker. This speaker is our Ward 5 DC Councilmember and my friend, Councilmember Kenyan McDuffie. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Councilmember Kenyan McDuffie. I'm a lifelong Washingtonian, and I've been representing Ward 5 on the council since 2012. Importantly, I'm Chair Pro Tem, but I'm also the chair of the Council's Committee on Business and Economic Development. And with that responsibility, I have oversight of the Public Service Commission, Office of People's Counsel, and interact frequently with advocates and utilities and everybody who cares about our environment. So I want to thank Commissioner Phillips, Chairman of the Public Service Commission, as well as Commissioners Thompson, I see right here. I don't see Commissioner Beverly, but also recognize him for his efforts on the commission. I also would be remiss if I didn't congratulate publicly Chairman Phillips on his nomination by the Biden administration to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Definitely. For years, Chairman Phillips and his team at the PSC have really championed the district's clean energy goals, and we're excited and proud that his work is being recognized on a national level. I also want to thank the Public Service Commission staff and all the folks who are on panels today, moderators and attendees of this very important Clean Energy Summit. As we move through the post-pandemic recovery, it is extraordinarily important, and it must remain an imperative that we continue to serve the communities that were most affected by this COVID-19 pandemic. And we must recognize that our low-income communities, particularly those communities of color, have been disproportionately impacted by the coronavirus, facing high rates of infection, hospitalization, and death, high rates of unemployment and lack of access to necessities like food, housing, and health care, and let's not forget the inability to pay their utility bills. It's also important that we remember that these same communities often face the harshest consequences of climate change, including unprecedented flooding and power outages. They're also often located near industrial facilities and subject to some of the poorest air quality in our neighborhoods. The path toward clean energy must make its way through these communities rather than going around them. In 2019, the council enacted the Clean Energy Omnibus Amendment Act, which established the most aggressive clean energy goals in the region, including 50% reduction in greenhouse emissions and 100% renewable energy by 2032 and 100% carbon neutrality by 2050. There are a lot of the folks who are in this room who contributed to that very important measure, and I want to recognize you for your efforts at doing so. I've been an ardent supporter of legislation and policies in furtherance of these very important commitments throughout my tenure as chair of the Council's Committee on Business and Economic Development. And I also want to commend the Public Service Commission's efforts to promote clean energy to the public and streamline its application process for some of the important community renewable energy facilities and other work that we've been doing here in the District of Columbia around solar and the like to reduce electric bills and also reduce the load on our electric grill. Next week, I'm going to be introducing legislation to annually recognize the first Wednesday of October as the District of Columbia Clean Energy Efficiency Day. I believe the benefits of conserving energy require an annual day of recognition, aligned with the advancement of key actions that can be taken by residents to reduce energy usage, protect the environment, and reduce energy costs for every person in the District of Columbia, and equitably, and do so inclusively. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. And we are all in this together. I know you've heard that a lot throughout the course of the pandemic. I think it bears repeating. We are all in this together, and I encourage you all to remain as actively involved as you've been. There's a lot of work left for us to do, and only through the exchange of ideas at summits like these will we achieve our goals. I look forward to hearing from the panelists and industry experts about best practices and new techniques for achieving our clean energy objectives. And once again, thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. There are a lot of great people here we're going to hear from today, and so I think I'm going to be quiet and let you all hear from some of them. Thank you all.
Thank you, Councilmember McDuffie, for those comments. They were very timely, and thank you for your service to the city. Next up, we'll have Jeff Marootian. He'll be our next speaker. He is the Special Assistant to President Biden on Climate and Science Personnel. Jeff previously served in the Obama administration as the Assistant Secretary for Management and Chief Sustainability Officer in the Department of Transportation. And then prior to that, he was head of the district's own Department of Transportation. So we welcome him to the stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is so great to be here. Let me also echo Councilmember McDuffie in extending my thanks to the Commission for the invitation. I also want to say how great it is to be in this incredible library, and so good to see people interacting here. As Commissioner Thompson mentioned, I have the incredible privilege of serving in the Biden-Harris administration and working alongside several colleagues who you'll hear from today throughout the course of the day, all of whom have this great privilege and opportunity to help drive President Biden's climate agenda. I previously had the privilege of working here in the district as the city's transportation director, and looking around the room, it's great to see so many good friends with whom I was able to work very closely with. In addition to Councilmember McDuffie, I'd be remiss if I didn't also acknowledge my friend Tommy Wells, from whom I learned quite a bit about climate, and with whom I had the incredible good fortune to work on some really exciting projects together. Because of that, having worked in city government, I know how important these types of convenings are. And so I commend the Commission for pulling this outstanding group of speakers and professionals together in the same room so that we can share ideas, talk about issues and complexities, and also share successes. Like many of you, I have a renewed sense of enthusiasm about the work that we do because we have a president that has made it such a priority. It's not lost on me how meaningful that is to have such a level of national importance to the work that so many of you have been doing for so long. And I think it's clear in looking at the discussion topics today that strong federal partnerships and strong federal leadership are critical and a key to success. So I want to talk very briefly about some of the work that's been done to date and how I think we can begin to move the ball forward alongside each other. As you may know, the president created a whole of government approach to tackling our climate crisis. And what that means is that it's not just agencies like the Department of Energy and EPA and DOT that are working on these issues, but agencies like Health and Human Services and HUD and Homeland Security are too. And as you'll hear from some of my colleagues a bit later, environmental justice is a core theme of much of the work of the Biden-Harris administration. President Biden signed an executive order earlier this year that jump-started our effort to mobilize every federal government agency to tackle the climate crisis and ensure that we consistently recognize and prioritize environmental justice communities. The White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council that the president created includes a diverse group of members from across the country, each with a long history of fighting for clean air, clean water, and for justice. We all know that the frequency and ferocity of extreme weather is a blinking code red. We've seen everyone across the country impacted in the last few months, from hurricanes in the Gulf, storms up the eastern seaboard, wildfires tearing through the West, droughts and heat waves across the country devastating farmers and ranchers. And there's no doubt that the president knows we need to make ambitious and bold investments to make our nation more resilient to the impacts of climate change. So he continues to reiterate the need for the bipartisan infrastructure deal and Build Back Better agenda to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, produce carbon pollution-free power, and reach net zero emissions. And we all know that we can do this in a way that creates good jobs, lowers costs for consumers and businesses, advances environmental justice, and makes America a leader in new industries. But I think what's important today is that we're going to hear from state officials and system operators and advocates and others who are deep in the weeds on doing this detailed planning. Having come from running a local transportation agency, I know that reducing sector emissions is hard work, and it requires a lot of creative thinking, tenacity, and cooperation. It requires bringing together advocates and local officials to agree on paths forward. I'm amazed at the caliber of scientists and policy experts, advocates, lawyers, and so many other professionals who have come together under President Biden's leadership to help our country build back better. You'll hear from some of my colleagues, Cecilia Martinez, Kelly Speaks Bachman, a bit later. These are just some of the hundreds and hundreds of experts across the administration at all levels who have joined forces to help our country build back better. And they will pair well with many of the folks on the ground across the country who also know that we have a lot of work to do together and that there isn't a minute to waste. So thank you so much again to the Commission for the opportunity to be here. I look forward to the conversation, and I look forward to staying engaged with all of you as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, for those comments. We really appreciate the President's leadership on these very timely issues. Neil Chatterjee recently left the FERC, and he is now in private practice. Prior to being a chairman on FERC, he was an advisor to Senator Mitch McConnell, where he helped with he aided the passage of major energy, highway, and other critical infrastructure bills. Because of his busy schedule, he will not be able to be here in person, but he has provided a recorded message, and so here is Neil. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Neil Chatterjee, former chair and commissioner at the U.S. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and I'm honored today to be speaking to you on behalf of the DC Public Service Commission at the Clean Energy Summit focused on a path to decarbonization. My remarks today will cover a couple of different areas. First, I want to highlight some of FERC's major accomplishments during my tenure, many of which were bipartisan and necessary to keep pace with the rapid change taking place in the energy sector as we push towards decarbonization. Second, I want to discuss ongoing efforts initiated during my time chairing FERC and why I think it's so important for the Commission to complete them, again, with an eye towards decarbonization. Third, I want to identify several areas I think the Commission should focus on in the immediate future to ensure American consumers have access to efficient, safe, reliable, secure, clean energy at a reasonable cost. Serving as chairman of FERC was the honor of my lifetime. I have been blessed to serve my country by working with the kindest and most talented collection of people in the federal government. The first major accomplishment I want to mention today is actually not a policy achievement, but it's a testament to the Commission's stellar staff and is, quite frankly, the most gratifying of my tenure. The last 18 months have been incredibly challenging for all of us. The efforts that staff and colleagues took at FERC to maintain its status as a beacon of stability during such an uncertain time very well may have been the highlight of my career. I actually got a little emotional after seeing the results of the annual Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey, in which FERC staff assessed employee satisfaction to be at an all-time high, all while dealing with lockdowns, juggling work and family responsibilities, and worrying about the well-being of loved ones. I could not be more proud of the Commission's ranking as the #1 mid-size agency for performance during the pandemic. My regulatory philosophy during my time at FERC was that the Commission should never be a barrier to progress. Rather, FERC should be a catalyst, an enabler of competitive and transparent markets that support needed investments and new technologies. Here in the US, we are in the midst of an extraordinary energy transition as we witness the rise of cleaner energy and new technologies that will revolutionize how we generate, transmit, and consume energy. In order to unleash the power of that transition, I believe the Commission's role is, in many respects, to eliminate market barriers and then simply to get out of the way. The best examples of what I mean here are two landmark bipartisan reforms that FERC accomplished during my time leading the Commission. FERC Order 841, which removed barriers to the participation of electric storage resources in wholesale electricity markets, and FERC Order 2222, which removed barriers to aggregated distributed energy resources, or DERs, in those markets. I cannot overstate the importance of these foundational rules in paving the way for the grid of the future. I believe they will transform our energy landscape by increasing competition and efficiencies in markets while spurring innovation and capital investment in emerging technologies that have unique grid flexibility and reliability attributes. When new technologies like these can compete, they thrive. And as a result, consumers win in the form of lower costs, cleaner energy services, and a more resilient and reliable grid. I am also proud that the Commission was able to complete a multi-year effort to modernize its Public Utility Regulatory Policies Act of 1978 regulations when we issued FERC Order 872 last year. Prior to that issuance, the Commission had not meaningfully updated its original PURPA regulations that were codified in 1980. Last year's order will ensure the Commission's rules and regulations can keep pace with the rapidly changing energy landscape. I feel this order struck the right balance by continuing to encourage the development of qualifying facilities while better protecting consumers and providing additional flexibility to state regulators to establish avoided cost rates using competitive market principles. I am also proud of the work FERC did while I was chairman to move the ball forward on carbon pricing in electricity markets as an important tool to advance state environmental policies while ensuring wholesale markets remain efficient. Transparent and predictable carbon pricing can enhance competition, facilitate financing, and reduce investor uncertainty. For these reasons, I believe carbon pricing is a superior approach, a vastly superior approach to reducing carbon emissions than heavy-handed, less transparent, and more costly approaches like state subsidies. Under my chairmanship, we held a historic technical conference on carbon pricing and issued a bipartisan draft policy statement setting forth criteria that the Commission would consider should a regional transmission organization, or RTO, propose to incorporate a state-imposed carbon price into its tariff. I am so glad the Commission since issued a final policy statement that largely affirmed the draft policy statement. Turning to infrastructure issues, I am proud of the work the Commission did to process applications for liquefied natural gas export facilities in a timely manner. Connecting abundant American natural gas supplies to domestic and international markets enables low-cost natural gas to displace more carbon-intensive energy sources and lower global emissions. Under my chairmanship, we reached a bipartisan agreement that allowed us to break a years-long logjam and begin processing LNG facility applications. In my view, delays at FERC should never be the barrier to getting needed infrastructure built. We have an important statutory role to play in reviewing applications, and we carried out that responsibility with diligence and care. While on the topic of infrastructure, I must note that we have to carefully balance the Commission's responsibility to process infrastructure applications with the potential impacts that it can create for landowners and communities. That is why I was proud that under my leadership, the Commission made organizational and process changes to expedite rehearing requests by affected landowners, and we issued a rule prohibiting companies from beginning construction until orders on rehearing were completed. Now turning to ongoing initiatives. The Commission also explored a variety of emerging issues during my chairmanship that I hope it will act upon in the coming months. These include proceedings exploring hybrid resources, offshore wind resources, adjustable line ratings, and transmission incentives. For hybrid and offshore wind resources, I was pleased the Commission was able to hold technical conferences to examine existing barriers to these resources' participation and to identify potential solutions to allow these technologies to interconnect and compete in wholesale markets. The Commission must continue these efforts to eliminate any barriers facing these emerging technologies. I likewise was proud of the multi-year effort that resulted in the adjustable line ratings notice of proposed rulemaking the Commission issued last November. It makes little sense, given the extreme weather we have experienced in recent months and years, to continue relying so heavily on overly simplistic static and seasonal line ratings. Therefore, to ensure the accuracy of line ratings, the NOPR proposed to require transmission providers to implement ambient adjusted ratings. This is an example of a common sense and significant reform that the Commission should complete soon. I was also pleased with another NOPR that the Commission issued last March that proposed to reimagine its transmission incentives policy. In my opinion, FERC's existing incentives policy inappropriately focuses on risks and challenges, in contrast with the statutory text that requires the Commission to establish incentive-based rate treatments for the purpose of benefiting consumers by ensuring reliability and reducing the cost of delivered power by reducing transmission congestion. I strongly believe that the Commission should move forward to issue a final rule that provides incentives to transmission projects that provide the most net economic benefits to consumers, those that provide substantial reliability benefits, and pilot programs for new transmission technologies. Looking to the future, I applaud Chairman Glick and my colleagues for their recent advanced NOPR on transmission planning, cost allocation, and interconnection. Although I didn't agree with all of the concepts discussed in the advanced NOPR, some of the proposed changes, combined with a strengthened transmission incentives policy, could really go a long way towards setting the stage for building the regional and interregional transmission projects we all hope to see. I'm also interested in how our wholesale energy markets can continue to work as the resource mix shifts to zero marginal cost resources like wind and solar. These resources, in part due to their ability to receive federal tax credits, can submit near zero and sometimes negative offers for energy, which has led to declining energy prices. Moreover, to the extent these resources receive state subsidies, they likewise can submit near zero offers for capacity. I do have some concerns that as these trends continue, otherwise competitive resources that are essential to reliability may not be able to recover their costs and could be forced into premature retirement. With that in mind, I am glad that Chairman Glick conducted 2 technical conferences to take a deep dive into energy and ancillary service markets, as this is a very important and timely conversation to have. Finally, I am extremely optimistic about the future of energy storage, and I want to make sure that FERC's policies are in line with what is needed to advance these incredible technologies, and have some concerns about policies that require storage resources to make a false choice between participating in wholesale markets and providing transmission service. Rather than unnecessarily limiting the use of these valuable and flexible resources, the Commission should allow consumers to reap their full benefits by providing a clear framework for energy storage resources that provide transmission service to also participate in wholesale electricity markets. This is an exciting time to be working in the energy policy landscape. The DC Public Service Commission plays an integral role, as does FERC, in keeping policies apace with the energy transition. I deeply appreciate the invitation to speak here today to go over some of my experiences during my time at FERC that I really feel played a key role in the path to decarbonization. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts with you today.